And we're back, Jonathan.
Another episode of the Road to Code
with our guest, Jeff Pham. Jeff and I used to work together about 10 years ago. We've actually kept in touch since then, huh? We've done quite a bit. We used to go train martial arts together. And then we went out just prior, just a couple of years ago. We went out to dinner over at the Irvine area and saw a comedy show and stuff, hung out for a few.
You were at my wedding.
I was at your wedding. That's
Before
right.
that, yeah.
So we've kept in touch. Jeff and another gentleman that we're gonna have as our guest. He'll be a guest here on this podcast as well.
Is it who I'm thinking of?
It's exactly who you think of.
Oh man, that's gonna be very entertaining.
If this wasn't entertaining enough, yeah, that our next guest is.
I can only imagine. All right.
He claims to be filled with useless knowledge, but let's not take away the attention from Jeff. Jeff is our guest now. So yeah, Jeff, welcome. And we'll get to you in a moment. We'll got a couple of things to announce. The first one, which is our merch giveaway. Jonathan, you want to talk about that?
Yes, for the month of July, whoever comments on one of our videos or subscribes to the channel will be entered into the raffle to get free merch.
Cool. Very cool. And what are they getting? I mean, what is this free merch all about?
Yes, so you can decide to choose between a women's t-shirt, men's t-shirt, a tote bag, or a coffee mug.
You know, Jonathan, that's really hard to choose, especially if I can't see the merchandise. It's like, how am I supposed to choose?
Oh yeah, I could show you the merchandise. Let me share my screen real quick.
Can you hear my Angry Birds in the background, Jeff?
I can. They're angry at not seeing the merchandise. Oh, there it is.
There it is. So yeah, so we have a women's classic tee, a men's classic tee, a tote bag, and a coffee mug.
I really like that logo. Who thought of that?
I designed it.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's like the Road to Code.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool.
So yeah, you have to choose whichever one of these you'd like and represent the Road to Code.
Yeah. In fact, for being our guest, Jeff, we are going to give you and your significant other any one of these that you want. You go ahead and pick one for you and pick one for your significant other.
Oh man, all right. Probably I'm gonna get the mug for myself.
All right.
And for my significant other, probably the tote bag.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We'll get that out to you. We're gonna go ahead and place an order, and we'll go ahead and grab you a mug and grab you a tote bag for your
awesome.
For your wife.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Then you could sport the logo. And when people at work ask you, is like, dude, where'd you get that mug at? And you're like, yeah, you like it? They're like, no, your coffee mug. You're like, oh, that. It's like, here, let me show you where it came from.
Yeah, I've actually been showing some of my coworkers your website already.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, oh, guys, I'm gonna be on a podcast, and like, this is the one. Oh, wow,
cool.
Getting the word out there.
So, Jonathan, if people have money burning their pockets, because during the pandemic, man, everybody was rich, right? Mm-hmm. Buying real estate and houses and condos and stuff. They can probably go to the store here and buy one of these. How do they get to it?
Oh yeah, on our website, we have a link or a.
We have a website?
We have a website.
What? The roadtocode.net.
Loading.
You know what we need to do? We need to create a keep alive that just every few minutes just goes out and visits the website to keep it warm. All right. So they go to the website.
and we have all of the episodes and all that stuff. And right here, we have a tab for the official merch.
Oh, nice. And they can just go in there and buy it.
Simple as that.
Very cool. All right.
Nice.
But if they don't have money and they were broke like we were during the pandemic, if you're subscribed already to the channel, all you need to do is comment on any video, new or old, and just put a comment in there and it'll record the date and will automatically enter you into a raffle where at the end of the month, we're actually wrote a little console application, little program that goes and picks the winner, right?
Yep.
Or if you have nothing to say, you can just put what?
Show me the merch.
That's right. Or if you haven't subscribed, all you got to do is simply just subscribe. You don't even have to comment. And your subscription will then enter your name into the raffle. And at the end of every month, you get to choose. If you win, you get to choose what you want. So very cool. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about, you want to stop sharing? Let's talk about a little project that I've been working on, if you don't mind. I will, oh, wait a second. It's not what I wanted. Where's my Chrome? Ah, here it is. Let's talk about a little website here called Thinkster. Thinkster.io. They actually do some training videos, and over at thinkster.io, they have training videos where you can learn Angular, React, Vue, Python, including the Django framework. You can learn about Node. And they have this little a la carte technology stack where you can go and pick your front end and pick your back end of your choice, put them together, and you'll be able to, it'll show you how to build a full stack website. Here we have Angular, Vue, and React as far as the front end, and then we have Node, the Django, and Ruby for the back end. And for the back end, I created the videos that will allow you to pick from that technology stack in .NET using C# 5.0. And so, yeah, so if you come in here and you can grab one of the free memberships, and we're giving away more than half of these videos as an intro. And you can get all the way through setting up the project and learning about registering a user, utilizing asynchronous process, utilizing encryption that is built into the .NET framework. And then once you get over to the login, that's where you're going to hit the paywall. And if you enjoyed the video so far, you know, it'd be great to have you sign up and pay the monthly fee. I think the monthly fee is pretty affordable. If you do join, let's see, I think there is a link here that says Go Pro. And you can, where is it at? Where was the pricing? Oh, I know why. I need to log out. Here we go, Pro. So yeah, so monthly, if you pay month to month, it's 24 bucks, not bad at all. If you pay for a whole year, you get half price. So if you could pay for a whole year, there's plenty of videos for you to learn from. I benefit monetarily, and I would definitely appreciate the views on my videos. And so you end up learning quite a bit about .NET, C#, Entity Framework, and building a web API for a full stack application. And that's my plugin for some of the work and projects that I've been working on.
What was the team one?
The team one, there was something for teams?
No, there was the yearly and then the monthly, and then I saw like a third option.
Yeah, so they have some kind of team where you pay 42 bucks a month. Not really. Oh, I guess you need to contact them.
Okay, so that's probably like for like a group of people, right?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So, cool. All right. So let's talk about our guest,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yes.
You had well, let's do a quick intro on Jeff. Let's talk about we've known each other for, I don't know, 2009.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, more than 10 years, huh?
Yep.
It's quite a
Been a
long,
journey.
it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most of our contact has been over text and answering questions for each other about technology and occasionally about life. I think more about life than technology.
At some point, the lines begin to blur between life and technology.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I wanted to bring you on as a guest just to, there's a lot of people out there that are learning about technology. And I feel that people think that they can just go get a degree or go to a 90-day boot camp or a 6-month boot camp or a 1-year boot camp, coding boot camp, I mean. And that's all they're going to have to do. That like they go get a job and then from there, the money is just going to start rolling in. And it's such a, all the commercials and all the ads that I see out there, I'm not going to say that they're false. It's a well-paid field. Would you agree?
Yes, I would definitely agree.
Yeah, it's a well-paid field, but it does come at a price. And so the whole purpose of bringing you on board is to kind of talk about that. It's not a one-time go take a test and you never have to learn again. You're just going to have everything in your mind to get the job done. And it's not the case. It's the education is constantly evolving. The learning process is just constant. It just goes on and on. And so you earlier in the in one of our other segments, you were talking about, you had a question for us, and I found that it was a really good question. And you asked, it's like, where did we get like all the, oh man, where did I put that? Oh yeah. How did we come up with the tech birthdays and the history and all that, right? And so I wanted to answer that before we get into the whole interview process here. I feel that when you're learning something, it's important that you know where it came from. It's not always necessary to get the job done, but it prevents you from criticizing if it's bad technology or if it's convoluted or if it's hard to work with or if it's volatile or unstable. Understanding where it came from always helps you. It gives you that perspective of how much better it is or why it doesn't work or why it doesn't work the way you expected, by knowing a little bit of the history, than just jumping in and criticizing it like, oh, this is bad. And so when we started these segments, I figured let's start introducing to Jonathan, who is learning, let's start introducing some of the people that have influenced technology. And I did it more for fun, but I think there's been some benefit to it, Jonathan.
I think so.
What are some of the things that you would say has helped you?
Knowing some of the background from some of the companies, like kind of like the legal battles, which kind of end up in what we have today as well. With some of the
C# was created because of a huge legal battle between Sun Microsystems and Microsoft. And so so it's kind of interesting. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, another programming language. It's like, but if you know the history, you're like, yeah, I could see where Microsoft wanted to position themselves, and so a new programming language was needed, and so it was one of those cases. And then with the tech history, also it's kind of fun just to go back into history and just like, oh man, the Nintendo Switch or the NES. Oh, you mean there was something prior to the NES? It was called Famcom or something like that, or ComFam, or I forget the name of it that Nintendo had given it, which meant for family computer, and it looks like the predecessor to NES, it's kind of cool. So yeah, so we came up with that, and we found a website that had some history on tech instead of going through searching through like Wikipedia and stuff like that, which is a little bit more dense. This website called dayintechhistory.com. They actually have the technology birthdays, and then there's another one called computerhistory.org. And so that one has today in history. And every day, I think it's an automated process that just goes and shows the current date in history and for prior years. And yeah, I just thought it was a fun thing to do with Jonathan and teach him a little bit of history of computers and where things come. And it's helped me, kind of look back, and like when I look at technology right now, it's like, I don't criticize it because it's come such a long way. Is it perfect? Heck no. I think all of technology, when it comes to the web, is just a big house of cards. If the wind blows in the right direction, the whole thing just comes crumbling down. We've seen Google run into problems recently. I mean, they had a huge outage, Amazon with some of their cloud infrastructure, a little blip, and man, people were down for several hours, while they try to figure out and build up the stack of cards again, but yeah, there's just it's one of those things that keeps you humble, knowing where things are coming from and what a huge improvement they've made, even though we're still working with web technology. That's, to me, is a house of cards. You cut the right wire in the wrong place and the whole internet goes down for that sector of the world. So yeah, so that's kind of, to answer your question, Jeff, that's kind of where it all came from.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. All right. So yeah, let's get into it, Jeff. Let's talk about where you were born and where you grew up.
I was born in Santa Ana, Orange County, Santa Ana. That was where I was born. That was where I grew up. That was where I spent, my formative years. Growing up, I kind of moved around in Southern California, Orange County, Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley. But base of operations, I've always, somehow or other wandered back to Santa Ana. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of where I'm from.
Would you say that the streets of Santa Ana are mean?
The mean streets of Santa Ana. Yeah, I mean, it's not as much as before. Yeah, it's calmed down quite a bit. When I was growing up there, it was pretty vicious. It was definitely mean streets out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Things have changed. Things have changed.
Things have changed. Yep, for the better, for sure.
That's cool. At what point in your life did you decide that programming was the thing that you wanted to get into?
Programming, there wasn't like a set time where I, decided, okay, this is the path I'm going to take and I'm going to stick with this. It was really kind of like a slow build. I mean, I would say it, loosely, is probably since since I was a kid, right? I used to like to play with, like, we didn't have Legos. I had the cheaper knockoff of Legos, which is Constructs.
What was it called?
Constructs. Constructs is like, yeah, these beams and these like connectors where you connect these beams together. And
is that the one that has like a circular with a bunch of holes in it? And
no, it wasn't. Oh. Yeah, it wasn't that one.
It wasn't that much of a knockoff.
Yeah, no, it was. It was a knockoff of a knockoff. So it was like just 90 degrees. Everything was 90 degrees. It was like a connector, and it was like each side. It was like a cube, right? Each connector was a cube, and each side would connect to another beam.
Okay.
And I just got addicted to building stuff, right? So it got me into that kind of mindset of designing, building, engineering. So I think it's from that point on that I just really got addicted to the idea of building things, right? And then it ties into programming because now you're not building things physically, right? But you're designing and building vast, software that doing all kinds of different things. I think it's really cool because
Yeah.
you're not limited to physically, but you're it's more like kind of like a virtual, right? You're expressing virtual concepts through software, you know. So I think it brings a whole new aspect to designing and engineering.
Yeah. I've always, I've always said that if you get into this field, you have to get into it because you like it. If you're getting into it for the money, it's completely the wrong reason to get into it. It's not that the money is not worth it, because it is. It's a well-paid industry, but it shouldn't be your priority, because if you don't like continuously learning, continuously building, continuously solving problems, continuously pushing the edge of technology, it doesn't matter how much money you get paid, you're going to hate it. You're going to hate it. You're going to be miserable, and it's just, it doesn't matter how much money you get paid, and you're just not going to be happy. It's almost like, I don't care how much money you pay me. I could not be happy cleaning toilets. That's just me. It's like, it's mind numbing, and it's just, I wouldn't see myself being happy. I was like, just couldn't do it.
Or gosh, for me it would be probably, I'm biased on this one, but I would say filing, because I've done so much of it in my past. Filing, just like, well, this is before computers exploded, but I had a job where, for a couple of years, I just like alphabetized papers and files and folders and put them into like a cabinet. And that was my job. And it's just hours upon hours of like hundreds of papers and just, putting them in alphabetical order. Talk about mind numbing. That is, your mind will be really numb after that.
Did it pay well?
It paid decent. I mean, for that type of job, I was being paid well just because I was, because I did it for a long time, right? And they could trust me. So at first the pay wasn't that well, but I just slowly increased after that, just because they knew they could depend on me. But yeah, like you said, if you don't need to, live on it, I wouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, that's this industry, right? Just based on what you're saying, right? Is if you don't enjoy doing it, it doesn't matter how much money you get paid. It's like at the end of the day, when they need you the most, you're going to say, hey guys, it's 5 p.m. That's it. I'm out. Yeah. And there is those types of jobs out there for a developer. You could work your regular 8 to 5, and at 5, you can just go ahead and quit, and it still pays well, but you're not going to get included in things like the bonus structure. You're not going to get included in like substantial raises. Even if you're trying to move up into more senior positions where they do depend on you more, not having the drive to continuously learn or to be able to solve problems and push the edge of, push the boundaries of technology and stuff like that, and learn the next latest and greatest thing. It becomes a painful and very painful process. And so a lot of people get the burnout. Excuse me. They get the burnout and they quit. There's people at Microsoft that, sit there and just blog about how excited they are. And then all of a sudden, one day they're like, yeah, I'm burnt out. I'm going to go wash cars for the rest of my life. I actually picked up on Twitter. I saw one. This guy opened up his own auto detailing business. He was done with programming. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I hope I never get to that stage. I was like, I enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. I want to continue to enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know a doctor, right? Family friend. He's a doctor, and he was just talking one day about like he misses, what he misses? I mean, he's making really, as you would imagine a doctor would make, right? He's making good money. And he just telling me, you know what I miss? I was like, well, what do you miss? He was like, believe it or not, I miss my days when I was washing dishes at a restaurant. I was like, are you serious? Like, yeah, I just miss it. I miss just not thinking about anything, not stressing about anything. Just go in, clock out, no, clock in, wash dishes for 8 hours straight, clock out, and enjoy my rest of the day. Right.
Oh,
I like he just talks about like how, all the things that he used to do like off work and how easy life was at that time. But yeah, to each their own, right?
tell me about it. That's crazy. He was a doctor and now he wants to go back to dishwashing.
Well, he's not able to just because his family, right? They've become like super dependent on all the money he's making. But
Yeah.
he's just telling me like, yeah, I just want to go ride motorcycles and wash dishes.
And when you mean dependent is like the weekly allowance and the expensive house and all that.
Yeah, yeah, the clothes and the
Yeah.
nice school and everything.
Yeah. 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 Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
That is
So
crazy.
yeah, definitely love what you're doing.
Jonathan, you have anything?
Yeah, I feel like I'm starting to enjoy programming, like the different aspects of it. Just being able to literally create like a website. It's kind of cool. Like, I feel like a lot of people need that nowadays, especially today, today's
Yeah,
age. And
most
yeah.
definitely. Most definitely. What technology did you start with versus the technology that you're using now? Like what did you learn with?
Geez, well, I started with C++, right?
What?
Yeah, I started with C++, and
Dude, that's like down at the hardware level.
yeah, right. Well, I worked with VHDL at some point too, but no, that was just during school. So after I got out of school and I started working, various jobs like filing, right? I was doing filing, I was a cashier, I worked all kinds of jobs. And then I landed a web development job. And my first programming language there was classic ASP. And it was
Wow.
VB script was the language, right?
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
technology was classic ASP.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I had no complaints about it actually. It was solid for what we were doing at the time. It needed to, it did what we needed to do, and it got the job done. It was clean, it was efficient, and yeah, I didn't really have any complaints about it at the time.
So here's a little bit of trivia for you. What does ASP, what does the acronym stand for?
Active server pages.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was my tool
That was that was quite the marketing term that Microsoft came up with,
it was.
active server pages. So yeah, yeah. So basically it was if we were to put it into perspective, right? It's like you have your web server here and you have your client here. And back then it was just computer desktops. They rarely had laptops or mobile devices. So it was just one computer talking to another computer. And so the web server would serve up HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to the computer that had the browser. But it was dynamic when it would create the content and process it at the server. So the VB script would insert the dynamic content
Yes.
in between the HTML, which is static.
Mhm.
And then once it would intermingle the it would intermingle the dynamic content with the static content. It would package it up and just send it over to the browser. And then the person would have an active server page. So that's where the name came from, because it was always active, it was like
Yeah.
dynamic and stuff. So,
In
but
fact, that was the extension of it would be .asp.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason you needed to call the resource.asp was because of the ISAPI filter that the web server had. So the web server has these things called ISAPI filters. I don't know if they still work that way. I think they still do. And those ISAPI filters are the intersection of where it takes the resource that's on the computer and says, oh yeah, I know what to do with that extension. I know what to do with that resource. Let me go ahead and generate and then send down the results and whatnot. And so, yeah, I remember all that stuff. It's kind of,
Wow. Did you work with it as well?
I did.
You work with Classic
I did work with Classic ASP for a short time. I actually jumped in to ASP.NET, which was probably, it was difficult for me because I didn't understand fully how the web worked back then. And I feel that if you came from the classic ASP background, you had a better understanding of how the web worked, because that was really the way it was meant to be working. And we know that for a fact because after working with ASP.NET, they made such a huge framework to make the transition of Windows developers, to make the transition easier to web development through ASP.NET web forms. And so that was supposed to emulate the whole Windows development environment for a Windows developer. But then they backpedaled and it said, no, it's like we need to put the web back the way it was. And that's when the ASP.NET MVC framework came out. And it wasn't quite the classic ASP, but it did have that same feel with a different taste to it. You had what they call the Razor code, but you still had the backend C# code that would handle all your post and gets. And so yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was first working with .NET and we were working with web forms. At the time I thought that was just how things were done. I didn't realize, looking back, I was like, it was right. You're right. It's a transition, right? It was to help people that worked on desktop development slowly transition over to web development. But I feel the whole thing was a hack. It was a super hack, a giant hack, because that's not how web is supposed to be. That's not the foundation of it,
Correct.
So it was like basically what the best way I would explain it is fitting a square into a triangle hole or something like that. That was not how the web is. That's not how it's supposed to be done, but that's the only way at that time that they could, get it to work.
That was a framework that was given to us.
Yeah.
That was a framework. Yeah.
So, but with MVC coming around, that was a huge step. Microsoft actually took web development back to its root, right? Back to its natural way.
Yeah, exactly.
So this was back in 2010, 2000 earlier, right? MVC came around 2011.
Web forms started
2000s.
2002, January 2002.
And then MVC came around in 2010, I want to say.
I think it was 2009, 2010. 2009 was version 1.0, but IIS wasn't ready for it. IIS, if you created like some random folder and some path, if that folder didn't exist, IIS would just crash. It's like, this resource doesn't exist. They had to release a patch in order to be able to accept that. And they had to push the call earlier before IIS started looking for the resource. So it had its flaws, and it wasn't MVC's fault. It was the IIS, had the problem. And so that once they served the patch, then it became a lot more useful. And I think it was at version 2.0 where it became very useful. They started being able to serve up not just a web page, but you were able to serve up JSON, you were able to serve up XML, you were able to serve up just all these different types of formats. And 2.0 really accelerated that. And so that's when things started taking off. And then shortly after, they said hey, let's just use jQuery and start making AJAX calls and get back the JSON. And that's when MVC, or ASP.NET Web API came about. And so you got the Web API framework now, which is a spin-off of the ASP.NET MVC, except that it's built strictly for Web API. And so it's a strong Web API framework. But it's a spin-off of ASP.NET MVC.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah,
And then
do that.
are there variants of it?
Variants. What do you mean by variants?
Like different different vendors having like their own tools to cover that aspect for the
I'm sure there is. I mean, for my experience has mostly been working with Microsoft technology, except for a couple of years where I was working with a bunch of open source stuff. But even for when I worked with Python and Django, their API, yeah, a lot of it was still working with, request response type of architecture. You had your get, your put, your post, your delete, and all that would be used with the Django and its own flavor of entity framework. So they had their own object relational model framework that they would use to be able to deliver up data. So
okay.
yeah, I mean that's as far as that's as far as I know. I mean, I don't know much beyond that. I'd have to go learn a completely new language. With Node, I mean, Node has the same thing. Node has an API type of framework that they use. So they have a bunch of libraries that you can put on top of Node to to do the same thing as ASP.NET Web API. I think with .NET Core, they came up with the whole middleware concept, and that originated from Node, as far as I'm aware of. That's when I began hearing about middleware, where the middleware, you would write code that would execute during the pipeline before it actually got to any of your endpoints. And so it would go and take care of it during the pipeline. And so all that was middleware. And so it would just daisy chain all these calls during the pipeline.
Okay. I haven't touched core yet. I've been out of the loop for web development. I've been hard in the other side of the engineering world. So it's interesting when so recently I've taken a delve back into web development just on on my own time outside of work, and yeah, things have changed a lot. I mean, like you said, I mean, this is just proof in the pudding that web development is constantly evolving. It is, I mean, the technology is just flying by so fast. You learn one thing, and then within a few months there's like a new thing you need to learn. So you really got to be on top of technology in this field. Yeah, for sure. And let me see going back to the web forms, one thing I noticed is that this is the thing, like a lot of the newer folks, that never touch web forms, they're very lucky. Web form was, it was a giant hack. And I remember, so web is meant to be stateless, right? That's the whole idea. You send out a request, you get a response, but the response should not know anything about the previous response, right? Right. So every transaction is a separate transaction. Well, web forms, they broke all of that, right? So you're keeping like huge amounts of state in the HTML on the web page, and you see it every time, right? And what that does, it screws up the web page, right? It screws up the
performance.
Yeah, and also, for JavaScript developers, for any of the front-end developers, their life is a lot harder because now they have to deal with all this junk just so the web page can keep state.
Yep.
That whole arrow is.
It was painful. It was a painful time.
Yeah, it was really messy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's crazy to see how things have progressed over the years from me dealing with well, even before I was touching classic ASP. I can't even imagine what the developers before then were dealing with. But from classic ASP, and then I learned .NET, and then And then we learned Azure. When Azure came into the picture, that was like a whole new frame of thinking for me too. You know,
Yeah.
and then NoSQL, right? I was like, what is NoSQL? And then I had to learn about NoSQL. And then after that, just like a host of new development, new changes, new technology, constantly evolving.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you might have answered the question, but we'll go through the question anyways. Like, what do you struggle with that you struggled when you first began programming?
What do I still struggle with now that I struggled with when I first began programming? Definitely keeping up with the changes. I think that's, for me, that's always the hardest thing. Keeping up with the changes. So you really, yeah, if you gotta really love this. Like, I mean, it's a nail that we keep hammering into everybody, but yeah, you gotta love this. You gotta keep learning because it's definitely a really fast evolving field, you know. So that's, while I love it, I still struggle with it, you know. It's definitely like definitely something that um it takes a lot of effort to keep up with. Yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan, got anything?
That was a lot of stuff that I didn't really understand,
I
but
know, yeah, I can imagine a lot of it probably went over your head. Yeah, I mean, when you're in a field for quite a while, it's like you kind of reminisce back into some technology that you like and other technology that you really didn't like, you know, and it's like, I think, you know, 5, 10 years from now, you're probably going to be looking at the new technology and you're going to look back at what you started learning with and you're like, yeah, I missed that, or man, I'm glad that's gone. You know, it's like this is a much better way of doing things, you know, and it's a toss, you know, to what it comes down to. But you know, just to kind of you know iterate, you know, and I think I mentioned this in the beginning, is this is something that you definitely need to enjoy. You need to enjoy learning. You need to enjoy chasing the technology. You need to enjoy solving problems for non-technical people, and you need to enjoy pushing the boundaries and you know not get frustrated with the technology um, in order for it to for it to be worth it.
Hey, Jonathan, how long have you been programming, or how long have you been doing this?
I started in, it was October or November, so it's
Wow,
only been like a little more than 7 months. Yeah, like half a year.
Yeah.
okay, very cool. How do you like it so far?
I'm enjoying it. I'm still learning, always learning, of course. And yeah, everything's still so new to me, so I don't have any old technologies to talk about.
Other than the big CRT monitor when we were in elementary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I remember those.
yeah. So we got some fun questions for you, Jeff.
Sure.
Jonathan, you want to kick off on any?
All right. I'll start with the miscellaneous questions. What 3 pieces of advice would you give yourself when you first became a developer?
3 pieces of advice if I would give myself when I first became a developer. Any developer or web developer?
Any?
Any developer.
Any developer.
Yeah, because you didn't know that you were going to get into web back then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I guess the first thing would be to touch on an earlier point. And this really, I think this is really important, is to not be so quick to criticize. So, you know, given a scenario, you're walking into a scenario and things just do not look right to you, right? Things are not right. Things aren't programmed, or they're not engineered, or they're not put a certain way. And it seems maybe ridiculous to you, right? It's like, who did this stuff? Why was this thing written the way it was? It's ridiculous. Get rid of it, redo everything. But before you do that, right? Before you start going in and jimmy rigging and just redoing things the way you feel, understand what you're getting into, right? Understand the environment, understand why it was done the way it was, because it's very I would say that it's never just there because it's stupid, right? I get a lot of people that do that, right? They go in and they're like, it's stupid. Whoever wrote this is dumb. It's, you know, it's not stupid, right? Most of the time it was done for a reason, and you have to understand like the context of the situation and know why it was written. And once you do that, then you can start making effective, educated changes, right? I think that's one of the most important things, because someone else after you, they're going to come in and they're going to say like, you know, why did he write things the way, this is stupid, it's dumb. So, and then once you explain to them, right, then they'll, oh, okay, now it all makes sense, you know. So understand the background, understand the situation, understand what the history, right, of what you're walking into before you're so quick to judge. I think that's a big thing.
I think that applies in life in general too, you know?
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that just applies in life in general. I mean, I just finished listening to a podcast that I was recommended to listen to about trauma, you know, and why people behave a certain way, you know, and it's like, unless you know the trauma that people have gone through, you don't understand why they behave the way they behave, you know.
No,
And
that's true.
once you once you understand that trauma, then you understand their behavior and you could work with it. And so, yeah, I mean, this, you know, the same thing with programming, you know, it's like you have to understand the situation, understand the context, and not just be quick to, you know, aim from the hip and shoot with criticism. You know, it's like it doesn't work that way. So,
and you're definitely right with it being applicable to life in general. I think that's definitely, especially with people, right? It's very easy to say, oh, you know, this person is so and so because of whatever you're thinking. But once you learn about their history, what they've gone through, you know, you might see things in a different light, right?
totally.
Yeah. And another thing, I guess my next one would be, I would tell myself to know that, okay, so, and this is, I think, another thing that's kind of like pretty general, but things are always changing, right? I think it's, especially with technology, things are always changing. Science is always evolving. We're always learning new things, but certain core tenements will always remain the same. Certain things will always remain static, right? Like we might learn a lot about technology, maybe, you know, talking about space, right? Saying things to space, you know, the technology to get things out there are always changing, but gravity will always remain the same, right? That same basic foundation of physics will always remain the same, no matter how much technology changes, right? So understand that certain things have a core foundation. And if you can understand that core foundation, it doesn't matter how many new things are thrown at you and you learn those new things. As long as you have that core foundation, you're good, you're solid, you're standing on solid ground, right? So that's another thing I would tell myself. Let me see.
Where would be a good place to learn, not so much to learn about the foundations, but go learn what the foundations are? What would you recommend?
I mean, aside from books and, you know, the ever, you know, growing vast amounts of information on the internet, I would say mentors, right? I think that's a big one, you know, people that have been there for a while and they kind of see like a big, broad view of things, you know. Mentors are excellent places to learn, right? And they're really valuable because they have like a certain, it's not just words, right, on a book. They actually have been there and done that. So they've gone through the trenches, you know, so they can give you like not knowledge, but let me see. No, I'm sorry, not information, but knowledge, right? There's a difference between the two because with knowledge gives context to information, right? So I think mentors are, it's probably, like, I would say it's probably my favorite place to go to.
Yeah, I agree. I had a couple mentors myself that they probably don't even know that they were my mentors, but I consider them my mentors and stuff. So
yeah, mentors. Yeah, one of my favorite mentors was a gentleman named Victor Campos. Yeah, dude, you know, we've gone through like a lot of the stuff where we used to work. And believe it or not, you showed me a lot. I mean, you really like opened my eyes to a lot of new things about programming and development. And that I took away with me today, you know.
Oh, wow.
So
Thank
I
you.
think mentors are really valuable. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. I didn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. I consider you definitely a huge mentor.
Oh, wow.
And let me
Wait,
see.
I got something on my eye.
Are you sure it's not dust?
Probably the air conditioner.
Brush it away. Brush away the dust. Let me see. And a third thing that I would tell myself is let me see. Oh, this is a good one. This is a really good question. The third one. This is probably okay, this is probably another thing. Well, it's something that we've been talking about for you know past few minutes now, but also something that I would say is applicable to life is it's not about the money, right? It's definitely not about the money. And this is how I look at it. Money is not a destination. It's not where you want to go to, but it's the grease in the wheels to help you get there, right? So that's how I think of it. It's the journey that's important, right? And money is just the grease to help you along your journey, you know, but it's definitely not the destination. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, if you had the opportunity to work with someone, dead or alive currently, who would it be and why?
Oh, aside from you? Oh, okay, let me
Stop.
think. Anyone dead or alive, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Christ. In just in general, in anything or development
Anything.
or
It could be development. It could be building the crib that you're about to build for your new baby coming along, or maybe when the car broke down and you had to go switch out the battery or change a tire or whatever. I mean,
oh man, this is a really good question. Oh man, this I wish I knew this question beforehand. I would come up with a more substantial answer. I would say,
this is to make you think on your toes.
yeah, all right. I'm on my toes right now. All right. I might pick a different person if I thought about this again, but right now I would say Henry Ford. Henry Ford, and the reason why is that he developed a methodology that was probably that had a lot of good and a lot of bad. And the assembly line came from Henry Ford, right? It was super efficient. It was super efficient. You could, you know, lower prices for everyone. You could mass produce a lot of things, but it came at a huge cost, right? A human cost, right? The Industrial Revolution, it had a lot of good and a lot of bad. And I question a lot of things with the Industrial Revolution, but I would see what his line of thinking was, what he thought about, you know, all the results of his work, right? That's one person I would definitely want to pick their brain more, right? And I figure like if we work together on a project, I could ask them questions about their line of thinking, what they would think about this and that, the morality and ethics behind their choices. Yeah.
No, would that be Henry Ford Sr. or Jr.?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know there was a junior and senior.
I thought there was.
Uh,
Maybe I could be wrong. I thought in the movie there was a junior and senior.
there's a movie
Yeah,
about Henry Ford.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, where
You recommend it?
oh, I highly recommend it. I could be wrong. But if it's Henry Ford Sr. you're talking about, then yeah, I can see that.
You're a car guy though, right? You love cars though.
Man, I thought I was gonna get into mechanics when I graduated high school because I took 3 years of auto mechanics in high school.
Oh, so
This was
you are a total car guy.
I could tell you how the internal combustion chamber works in detail. I could draw it out for you
Oh my goodness.
to the point where any layman would be able to understand.
Jesus. You know what? You should do like a video on cars too.
Another podcast about cars.
That'd be
Another podcast.
interesting.
That'll be the third one we come up with.
Yeah.
The second one was the most Mexican thing you can do.
Oh, is that a podcast?
No, I'll show you the video after.
That sounds interesting. I hope to see that.
We've had a lot of people say like, we would subscribe to that podcast for sure. Very cool. Jonathan, you want to kick off the fun questions?
Yeah. What would be the theme song to your life?
Oh man. Theme song to my life. Jeez. Let me think about that.
I have a
I
couple
want to
of
say
them.
like classic, like a classic rock song. Just because I like classic rock too.
Oh, I thought you were gonna come out with some maybe like some ghetto rap or something, you know?
Or you know what? Now that you brought that up, maybe. Geez, I would say man, I would say some Led Zeppelin, maybe.
All right.
Or you know what? I would say, all right, I'll pick right now. I'm gonna say House of the Rising Sun.
Whoa.
Hey.
Is that
I think-
Bob Dylan? No.
Did he? I think he might have done a cover for it. There's several versions. I know the Animals version. That's probably the most popular version, but I know like several different artists did a cover for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who sings it, Jonathan? You're looking it up.
The original artist is the Animals, and covers by yeah, a lot of people do covers of this song.
I think I've heard the Bob Dylan version of it. Cool.
I'm gonna look that up.
What, let's see. I got a fun question here. Oh man, there's a couple of them here, but okay. If you could play a scene in a movie, what would it be and which character would you play?
Oh man. Geez. This is a good question because 100 comes to mind. Hundreds of like great movie scenes come to mind that I like. Jeez. Oh, this is really good. Man. And the funny thing is, like, there are a lot of movie scenes that I just kind of like reenact, like, as I'm driving somewhere with my wife, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I'll show you this movie later." All right. Okay. Right off the top of my head, right away, I would say Goodfellas, right?
Okay.
Funny scene. You know what I'm talking about, Victor?
I think so, yeah.
The funny guy.
Yeah.
That's a really good scene.
Oh man, that's a good. Jonathan?
The next question. What talents do you possess that not a lot of people know?
Oh. All right. I think almost no one knows this. I used to break dance.
I knew that.
Yeah.
And you still can do it.
You still
What was that?
You can still do it.
You know what? I haven't tried in a long time. But
the last time I saw you, you were able to do it pretty good.
you saw me break dance.
You showed me. We're at the gym or something.
What?
You did a capoeira move.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't even remember. But yeah, just from like talking to me, like a lot of people like, I would never guess, I'm like the breakdancing type.
That's cool.
Breakdance. Oh
Yeah.
man. All right. If you had to choose a name for your best friend, would it be Bob or Chuck?
Oh, if I had to choose a name for my best friend, Bob and Chuck. Those are the two options, huh?
Those are your two options. And why?
I'll
Chuck,
say Chuck. Yeah.
why?
I like woodchuckers. I don't know. That's the closest answer I can come to. Yeah, I like woodchuckers.
All right,
Something about woodchuckers that kind of intrigued me.
I got the next one.
go for it.
What would you rather do? Perform in a circus or an aquatic dance group? Since you're into dancing.
All right, what were the two options again?
A circus or aquatic dance group?
Aquatic dance group. I want to say probably the circus, just because reminds me of my childhood. I went to the circus a couple of times when I was a kid. I really liked it. So, and I always wondered what it's like to work at the circus. I don't know if that's something people wonder, but I always did wonder, like, oh, working at a circus, that must be like an adventure.
All right. We'll cut it down to the final two here, and I'll do one, you do one, Jonathan.
Okay.
If there was a zombie apocalypse tomorrow, what is the first thing you would do?
If there was a zombie apocalypse tomorrow and I found out, what would be the first thing I would do? Get all my things into a car and my wife and start driving. Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to drive through. I would figure that out as I'm driving. But first thing I can think of is get in the car, fill up with gas, load it up, and just get moving, right? Because I'm in the middle of like a really populous area, and most likely zombies will be coming for me the next day. So yeah, just get out of here, get out of Dodge.
All right, last question. When you die in the great apocalypse, what will it say on your tombstone?
The zombie apocalypse, because you're gonna die in the zombie apocalypse.
Would I don't know. I mean, you know, you don't have very much confidence in my survivorship.
You're a software developer. There's no confidence in survivalship here.
You bring up a good point. That's very true. Let me think. What would it say on my tombstone? What it would say on my tombstone? Damn, this is really like thinking on my toes here. Geez. Trying to come up with like a real solid answer instead of like some smart ass sarcastic answer here. Oh, damn you guys. Damn your question. This is a good one.
We could throw you a softball question if you'd like.
Let me think. All right, this is gonna sound typical, but I want. Oh man, it's kind of typical and it's kind of cheesy too. Like he died a father, a husband, and a man. I don't know.
All right, we need a better ending question. We'll give him a softball. Ready? What is the name of your next pet?
Oh, my next pet. I don't know if I'm gonna have it. Yeah.
Jeff, we're throwing you softballs here.
All right. Bear. I would name it Bear. It'll be a dog and I would call him Bear.
All right, Bear.
Yeah.
Bear it is. We look forward to meeting Bear. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for being on our podcast. It's been great keeping in touch with you, and look forward to getting together after this whole pandemic, which we officially called over. It's been over for at least a month. I went back to the office, so that's when I officially called it. Okay, this pandemic's over. They're calling me back to the office. But I look forward to getting together, and look forward to having you in the future. I might even consider having you and our next guest to join us together. That'll really be a fun.
That would be crazy. Yeah, I wonder what that would be like. Okay. Yeah, definitely let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. There you go. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us, and until next time.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Very cool. We're glad you had a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.